A millionaire found a baby in the trash holding a photo of his wife. When he brought the baby home, the millionaire was paralyzed to see what his wife had planned. The harsh fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Hospital cast long shadows across the pristine floor as Emily Bennett stumbled through the corridor, a trembling hand clutching a positive pregnancy test. She had planned the perfect surprise for her husband Michael's return from his business trip their miracle after years of trying. But fate had other plans. "Mrs. Bennett, your blood work results are concerning Dr. Anderson's words from moments ago echoed in her head. The symptoms you've been experiencing, they're not just from the pregnancy." The world began to spin, the sterile hospital walls blurring into a whirlwind of white. Emily reached for the nurse's station to steady herself, but her legs gave way. The last thing she heard was the alarmed voices of hospital staff rushing toward her. Across town, Michael Bennett hurried through the rain-slicked streets, his expensive suit soaked through. The sound that had caught his attention moments ago came again, a baby's cry, barely audible over the downpour. He hesitated, glancing around the deserted alley. Years of business instincts told him to walk away, but something pulled him toward the sound. There, beneath a deteriorating cardboard box, lay a newborn wrapped in a wet blanket. Michael's heart stopped when he saw what hung around the infant's neck, a delicate gold locket he would recognize anywhere. Inside was a photo of Emily, the same one he'd carefully placed there on their first anniversary 5 years ago. "This is impossible," he whispered, his hands shaking as he lifted the baby. "How did you get this? Who are you?" His phone buzzed, displaying St. Mary's Hospital's number. Michael's blood ran cold as he answered, still cradling the mysterious infant. "Mr. Bennett, you need to come immediately. Your wife has collapsed." "And Michael, the tests show it's leukemia. We don't have much time." The rain pounded harder as Michael stood frozen, looking between the helpless baby in his arms and the phone displaying the hospital's number. 2 lives now hung in the balance, his wife's and this mysterious infant who somehow possessed her necklace. Whatever choice he made in the next few moments would change everything forever. Thunder cracked overhead as Michael made his decision, clutching the baby closer to his chest as he ran toward his car. He didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning of a night that would unravel decades of secrets and test the very limits of love, sacrifice, and redemption. As this story unfolds, we invite you to join us on a journey of love, sacrifice, and redemption. If these first moments have touched your heart, subscribe to witness more powerful narratives that will move your soul and remind you of humanity's deepest connections. Michael and Emily Bennett embodied the American dream in every sense. Their sprawling Victorian home in Boston's prestigious Beacon Hill neighborhood stood as a testament to Michael's meteoric rise through the corporate world. At 45, he had built Bennett Enterprises from a small startup into a Fortune 500 company, yet success had never changed his humble nature or unwavering devotion to Emily. Their love story began 10 years ago at a charity gala where Emily, then a promising young pediatrician, caught Michael's attention not with her striking beauty, but with her passionate speech about providing medical care to underprivileged children. He fell in love with her compassion first, her grace second, and everything else followed naturally. Within 6 months, they were married in an intimate ceremony by the coast. Emily brought light into Michael's formerly monotonous life. Where his world had been filled with spreadsheets and board meetings, she introduced laughter, spontaneity, and purpose. Together, they established the Bennett Foundation, providing scholarships and healthcare to children in need. Their partnership was perfect, his business acumen and her medical expertise creating real change in their community. Their home buzzed with regular dinner parties, charity events, and weekend gatherings. Emily had a gift for making everyone feel special, from corporate executives to the household staff. Their housekeeper, Martha, often remarked that in 20 years of service to wealthy families, she'd never met anyone as genuine as Emily Bennett. But beneath their picture-perfect life lay a quiet sadness. For 5 years, they had been trying to have a child. Each negative pregnancy test felt like a small death, yet Emily never lost hope. She transformed their third-floor library into a future nursery, filling it with books she hoped to read to their child someday. Michael would often find her there, running her hands over the spines of children's classics, her eyes distant but determined. The fertility treatments had been grueling, but Emily faced them with characteristic grace. She maintained her demanding schedule at the children's hospital, never letting her personal struggles affect her care for her young patients. If anything, her inability to conceive only deepened her compassion for the families she treated. Michael watched his wife's strength with awe and heartbreak. He had offered to hire surrogates, explore adoption, anything to ease her pain. But Emily insisted their child would come when the time was right. Some things, she would say, are worth waiting for. Their marriage grew stronger through the challenges. Where other couples might have crumbled under the weight of unfulfilled dreams, Michael and Emily's bond deepened. They learned to find joy in the small moments: Sunday morning crosswords, impromptu dance sessions in their kitchen, quiet evenings in their garden watching the sunset. Just last month, they had decided to take a break from fertility treatments. Emily suggested they travel, perhaps volunteer at medical camps in developing countries. "Maybe our purpose is bigger than we imagined," she had said, curled up in Michael's arms. "Maybe we're meant to help many children instead of having just one." Whose selflessness in the face of disappointment made Michael love her even more. He had planned to surprise her with a trip to Tuscany, where they had spent their honeymoon. The tickets were hidden in his desk drawer, waiting for the right moment. Everything was perfect, or at least it seemed that way. Neither of them could have predicted how quickly their carefully constructed world would unravel, or how the appearance of one small baby would expose long-buried secrets that would test not just their love, but their very understanding of family, loyalty, and forgiveness. The bright lights of St. Mary's Hospital's oncology wing cast harsh shadows across Dr. Anderson's face as he delivered the devastating news. Emily's leukemia was aggressive, already in stage 4. The pregnancy had masked the symptoms: the fatigue, the bruising, the persistent low-grade fever she'd attributed to stress and hormonal changes. "Without immediate treatment, we're looking at days, maybe weeks," Dr. Anderson explained, his voice heavy with professional gravity. "But with the pregnancy, Mrs. Bennett, you'll need to make a choice. The chemotherapy would be fatal for the baby." Michael gripped Emily's hand tighter, the mysterious infant from the alley now sleeping in a hospital bassinet beside them. The baby's presence added an impossible layer of complexity to an already overwhelming situation. The gold locket still hung around the child's neck, catching the fluorescent light and seeming to mock them with its familiarity. "There has to be another option," Michael insisted, his voice cracking. "We can't just. There has to be something else." He looked desperately between Dr. Anderson and the team of specialists gathered in the room, searching for any sign of hope in their faces. Dr. Anderson cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. "There is one possibility: a bone marrow transplant. With a perfect match and aggressive supporting therapy, we might be able to buy enough time for Emily to carry the pregnancy to term. But finding a match quickly enough would be—" "Test me," Michael interrupted. "Test me right now." "Mr. Bennett, the chances of a non-relative being a match are extremely low. We'd need someone with a very close genetic connection to Emily. Siblings, particularly identical twins, would be ideal." Emily's face went pale, paler than seemed possible given her already weakened state. Michael noticed her hand trembling in his, but before he could question it, she spoke in a whisper. "I don't have any siblings. I was an only child." The baby stirred in the bassinet, drawing everyone's attention. Dr. Anderson approached, examining the infant with professional curiosity. "This child, you said you found him abandoned? With Mrs. Bennett's necklace?" Michael nodded, the weight of the coincidence suddenly feeling more significant. Could the baby be tested? The room fell silent. Dr. Anderson exchanged glances with his colleagues before responding carefully. Given the circumstances, yes, we should test everyone possible, including the infant. But Mr. Bennett, even if we find a match, the procedure carries significant risks for both donor and recipient. Emily's voice came out stronger than expected. No, not the baby. He's too small, too vulnerable. I won't risk an innocent child's life for mine. Her hand instinctively reached toward the bassinet, maternal instinct overriding even her own survival instinct. Mrs. Bennett, one of the specialists, stepped forward. We understand your concerns, but time is critical. Every hour we delay treatment reduces your chances of survival. We need to run all possible tests immediately. Michael watched his wife's face, seeing something there he'd never noticed before, not just fear or concern, but guilt. She was hiding something that seemed to weigh heavier than even her diagnosis. "Emily," he said softly, "what aren't you telling me?" Before she could answer, a nurse burst into the room, clutching test results. "Dr. Anderson, you need to see this immediately." She handed him the papers with trembling hands. The doctor's eyes widened as he read, his professional composure cracking for just a moment. This is impossible. The baby's DNA markers. Mrs. Bennett, are you absolutely certain you have no siblings? Emily closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "Michael," she whispered, "there's something I should have told you years ago. Something about my past, about who I really am." The baby began to cry, its wails echoing through the sterile hospital room as the truth that would unravel everything hung unspoken in the air. 25 years earlier, in a small town outside Boston, two identical girls sat on a creaking porch swing, their matching sundresses billowing in the summer breeze. Emily and Sarah Miller, aged 15, were inseparable mirror images with one subtle difference. Sarah had a small birthmark behind her right ear, a detail their parents used to tell them apart. "Promise we'll always be together," Sarah whispered, braiding Emily's hair as they watched the sunset. No matter what happens, neither girl knew it would be their last evening together. The next morning their parents sat them down, faces grave. Financial ruin had struck the Miller family. Medical bills from their mother's recent cancer treatment had bankrupted them. They could no longer afford to keep both girls. A wealthy aunt had offered to take one child, to give her the education and opportunities they couldn't provide. They had to choose. "Take Emily," Sarah had said immediately, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "She's always been the smarter one, the one with big dreams. She'll be a doctor someday." The selflessness in her sacrifice would haunt Emily for decades to come. Their parents' tears, their desperate apologies, the final hug, these moments burned themselves into Emily's memory. Sarah disappeared into the foster system, despite their parents' promises to find a way to reunite them. Every letter Emily sent was returned unopened. Every attempt to find her sister hit a dead end. Emily threw herself into her studies, driven by an unspoken promise to make Sarah's sacrifice worthwhile. She graduated top of her class, earned her medical degree, built the life her sister had wanted for her. But success tasted bitter without Sarah to share it. On her wedding day to Michael, Emily had left an empty seat in the front row, a small photo of two identical girls in sundresses placed carefully on the chair. She never told Michael about Sarah. The guilt and shame of her family's choice weighed too heavily. How could she explain that her perfect life was built on her sister's sacrifice? Years passed, and Emily never stopped searching. Private investigators found fragments. Sarah had bounced between foster homes, excelled in school despite the instability, and eventually earned a nursing degree. Then the trail went cold. It was as if Sarah Miller had vanished completely. Now, staring at the mysterious baby with her necklace, Emily felt the weight of her secrets crushing her. The timing of her illness, the abandoned infant, the impossible DNA match. It couldn't be coincidence. Sarah was out there, closer than ever, orchestrating something Emily couldn't yet understand. "Michael," Emily whispered, her voice trembling. "The baby's DNA markers match mine because I have a twin sister, Sarah, and I think she's trying to tell me something." The monitor tracking Emily's heartbeat quickened as decades of buried truth finally rose to the surface. The baby, perhaps Sarah's child, slept peacefully, unaware of the storm of revelations about to break. In the hospital corridor, unseen by the Bennetts, a nurse with a familiar birthmark behind her right ear watched through the window, her clipboard clutched tightly to her chest. Sarah Miller, now Sarah Collins, had spent years preparing for this moment. But seeing Emily again, even from a distance, made her question everything about her plan for revenge. For 3 years, Sarah Collins had walked the halls of St. Mary's Hospital, invisible in her nurse's uniform. Her rotation in oncology was no accident. She had orchestrated every detail, forged credentials with painstaking precision, and waited patiently to execute a plan 25 years in the making. The hospital staff knew her as Claire Thompson, a quiet but efficient nurse who preferred night shifts and kept to herself. From her carefully chosen position, Sarah watched Emily build her perfect life. She observed her sister's dedication to her pediatric patients, saw how she stayed late reading stories to children in the cancer ward, witnessed the respect she commanded from fellow doctors. But each glimpse of Emily's success twisted the knife deeper into Sarah's heart. During her night shifts, Sarah would sometimes slip into Emily's office, running her fingers over the framed medical degrees, the humanitarian awards, the photos of Emily and Michael at charity galas. One photograph particularly haunted her: Emily surrounded by smiling children at the Bennett Foundation's annual fundraiser. It was the life Sarah had dreamed of, the life she'd sacrificed herself to give her sister. "You look just like Dr. Bennett," a young nurse had once commented innocently, making Sarah's heart stop. She'd learned to brush off such remarks with a laugh, claiming it was just one of those coincidences. But every time someone noticed the resemblance, Sarah felt her carefully constructed facade crack a little more. The pregnancy had been unexpected, both Emily's and her own. Sarah discovered she was carrying a child just weeks before learning of her terminal diagnosis, the same aggressive leukemia that had nearly bankrupted their family when their mother battled it had now found its way into Sarah's blood. But unlike Emily, who had the best medical care available, Sarah had no insurance, no wealthy husband, no support system. She watched from the shadows as Emily radiated joy, sharing her pregnancy news with the hospital staff. The unfairness of it all crystallized in that moment. Emily would have everything again: a baby, a future, a chance at motherhood. Sarah's child would be an orphan, just as she had been. The plan formed slowly, born of desperation and years of suppressed rage. If Sarah was dying, she would force Emily to face the truth of their past. The baby would be her message, her way of making Emily understand the true cost of their family's choice. The golden locket stolen from Emily's office during a night shift would be the key to unlocking everything. But proximity bred complexity. Sarah saw Emily's kindness extended not just to her wealthy patients, but to everyone: the janitors, the cafeteria staff, the struggling families who couldn't afford treatment. She witnessed her sister anonymously paying medical bills for parents who reminded her of their own. Emily hadn't forgotten her roots. She'd used her privilege to help others. "Dr. Bennett stayed with my son all night," Sarah overheard a grateful mother say. She said no child should face cancer alone. The words echoed their shared past, making Sarah question everything she thought she knew about her sister. During her surveillance, Sarah discovered something else: Emily had never stopped looking for her. She found the private investigators' reports hidden in Emily's desk drawer, each one detailing another failed attempt to locate Sarah Miller. There were letters too, dozens of them, never sent but carefully preserved, chronicling years of Emily's guilt, love and desperate desire to reunite. Now, watching Emily receive her own leukemia diagnosis, Sarah felt her resolve wavering. The baby kicked inside her, as if sensing its mother's turmoil. Her original plan to force Emily to experience the same loss and abandonment she had suffered suddenly seemed hollow. The disease they'd watched destroy their mother was now threatening both sisters, a cruel twist of genetic fate. Sarah pressed her hand against the nursery window, looking at the newest arrivals. Soon her child would join them, carrying a necklace that would lead Michael Bennett to unravel everything. But as she watched Emily through the observation window, fighting nausea from her first round of treatment while still trying to comfort a young patient, Sarah realized the truth: revenge wouldn't change the past, but it might destroy the only family she had left. The delivery came 6 weeks early, on a stormy night that shook the hospital windows. Sarah gave birth alone, in an abandoned clinic across town, her medical training allowing her to handle the complicated process herself. As she held her son for the first time, she felt both overwhelming love and crushing despair. The leukemia was progressing rapidly. She could feel her strength fading with each passing day. With trembling hands, she fastened Emily's golden locket around the baby's neck. Inside, she had added a small note behind the photograph, containing the truth about their shared blood, their mother's genetic legacy, and the disease now claiming another generation. The infant stirred in his sleep, unaware of the weight of destiny hanging around his tiny neck. Sarah's plan was precise: leave the baby where Michael would find him, force Emily to confront their past, and disappear forever. But as she approached the alley near Michael's usual route home, something unexpected happened. She couldn't let go. Each attempt to place her son down was met with an overwhelming surge of maternal protection. "I'm sorry, my love," she whispered, tears mixing with the rain. "But you deserve better than a dying mother with nothing to offer." The baby's cry pierced the night as she finally forced herself to walk away, her heart shattering with each step. What Sarah hadn't counted on was Michael's immediacy in finding the child. She had planned to watch from a distance, ensure the baby's safety, but Michael appeared within minutes. From her hiding place, she watched him discover the locket, saw the recognition flash across his face, witnessed the beginning of her carefully orchestrated revelation. But then came the call about Emily's collapse, and everything changed. Sarah followed Michael to the hospital, slipping in through the staff entrance, her nurse's uniform providing the perfect cover. She heard the diagnosis: the same cancer that was killing her was now threatening Emily too. The cruel irony wasn't lost on her: their shared blood had given them the same death sentence. As she watched Emily and Michael grappling with the news, Sarah's carefully constructed plan began to unravel. The baby, her son, was now potentially Emily's only hope for survival. A bone marrow transplant from a newborn carried risks, but it might be the only chance either sister had. That's when Sarah made her decision. If she couldn't have her revenge, she would orchestrate one final act of chaos. Late that night, she slipped into the hospital nursery where her son lay. The security cameras had been carefully disabled. She'd spent months learning the hospital's systems. With practiced efficiency, she lifted the baby from his bassinet. "We're going to make them understand," she whispered, moving swiftly through the dark corridors. But as she reached her car, she saw Michael in pursuit. He must have been watching the nursery, anticipating something like this. Panic seized her. This wasn't part of the plan. She drove to the abandoned warehouse she'd prepared as a backup, her mind racing. The building was old, its wooden bones dry and waiting. Sarah had placed gasoline cans strategically, not to harm anyone, but to create a spectacle, to ensure her story would finally be heard. The baby sensed her distress, beginning to cry as she carried him inside. She could hear Michael's car in the distance. Everything was falling apart, but perhaps that had been the point all along. With shaking hands, she struck a match. "Sometimes we have to burn everything down to build it again," she told her son, remembering the day she'd sacrificed everything for Emily's future. The flames caught quickly, spreading across the floor in mesmerizing patterns. Sarah moved deeper into the warehouse, knowing Michael would follow, knowing this confrontation was inevitable. The fire grew faster than she'd anticipated, hungry and fierce. Smoke began to fill the space, and the baby's cries grew more urgent. Through the haze, she heard Michael's voice calling out, desperate and determined. This was the moment everything would change. In the dance of flames and shadows, Sarah would finally be seen not as the forgotten sister, the sacrifice, but as the architect of a truth too long buried. But as the fire roared around them and her son clung to her, Sarah realized she might have orchestrated not just her own destruction, but the very thing she'd sought to prevent another broken family, another child left alone. Michael Bennett crashed through the burning warehouse, his expensive suit jacket pressed against his face to filter the thickening smoke. The heat was intense, forcing him to crouch low as he moved deeper into the inferno. Every father's instinct in his body screamed at him to find the baby his son, if Emily's revelation about her twin was true. "Please," he shouted through the crackling flames. "You don't have to do this. Whatever Emily did, whatever happened in your past, we can talk about it." His voice was hoarse from the smoke, but he pressed on, following the increasingly desperate cries of the infant. Through the orange glow of the fire, he caught glimpses of a figure moving ahead of him, a woman whose silhouette matched his wife's perfectly. The similarity was uncanny, chilling. Even in her madness, Sarah's movements echoed Emily's grace. The parallel struck him hard. Two sisters, both mothers, both fighting desperately for what they believed was right. A burning beam crashed down behind him, cutting off his retreat. The warehouse was becoming a maze of fire and shadow, with the temperature rising to unbearable levels. Sweat poured down his face as he navigated through the deadly obstacle course, knowing one wrong turn could trap them all. "I know who you are, Sarah," he called out, hoping to reach whatever humanity remained in Emily's twin. "I've seen the letters Emily wrote you. She never stopped looking for you. She never stopped loving you." His words disappeared into the roar of the flames, but he thought he saw the figure ahead hesitate. The baby's cries led him to a corner of the warehouse where the fire hadn't yet reached. There stood Sarah, clutching the infant to her chest, her face a mirror of his wife's, but twisted with years of pain and abandonment. The golden locket gleamed against the baby's blanket, reflecting the deadly dance of flames around them. "You don't understand." Sarah's voice cracked with emotion. "She got everything: the education, the perfect life, the loving family. Do you know what the foster system does to a child? Do you know what it's like to watch your twin sister live the life that was supposed to be shared?" Michael took a cautious step forward, his hands raised in a peaceful gesture. "Then help me understand. But not here, not like this. The baby deserves a chance. Your baby, Sarah, and Emily. She's dying too. The same disease that's killing you is killing her. Don't let your son lose both his mother and his aunt." The ceiling groaned ominously above them. Time was running out. Michael could hear the distant wail of fire engines, but knew they wouldn't reach them in time. The warehouse was now a death trap, and Sarah held all their fates in her trembling hands. "Emily has leukemia." Sarah's composure cracked, revealing the sister who had once sacrificed everything for Emily's happiness. "I didn't. I thought." She looked down at her son, then at the inferno surrounding them. For the first time, fear replaced the determination in her eyes. Michael saw his chance. "Your son can save her, Sarah, and Emily can give him the life you want for him, but only if we get out of here now. Please let me help you both." The sound of splintering wood filled the air. Sarah looked up at the rafters, then back at Michael. In that moment, he saw the choice form in her eyes, the same selfless choice she'd made as a teenager, putting her sister's life before her own. "Promise me," she said, her voice barely audible over the roar of the flames. "Promise me you'll tell him about me, that I loved him more than my own life, that everything I did, even the worst of it, was because I couldn't bear to lose anyone else." Before Michael could respond, Sarah thrust the baby into his arms. "The south exit is still clear. Go. I'll distract the flames from this side." "Sarah, no, come with us." but she was already moving away, pushing a burning shelf aside to clear their path. "Take care of them both, Michael. Make sure my son knows he was born from love, not revenge." Michael clutched the baby tightly, watching Sarah disappear into the smoke. The choice she was making tore at his heart, but the precious weight in his arms left him no alternative. As he ran for the exit, his son pressed against his chest, he heard Sarah's final words echo through the inferno. "Tell Emily. Tell her I forgive her. And I hope she can forgive me too." Back at St. Mary's Hospital, Michael burst through the emergency room doors, the baby safely cradled in his arms. His face was streaked with soot, his once immaculate suit now reeking of smoke and destruction. As medical staff swarmed around them, checking the infant for smoke inhalation, Dr. Anderson approached with a grave expression. "Mr. Bennett, we've made a disturbing discovery," he said, holding up a personnel file. "The nurse who's been working in our oncology ward for the past 3 years, Claire Thompson, her credentials are forgeries. Extraordinarily good ones, but forgeries nonetheless." Michael, still catching his breath, looked at the ID photo attached to the file. Even through his exhaustion, the resemblance was unmistakable. Claire Thompson was Sarah Miller Emily's twin sister, had been hiding in plain sight all along, watching, waiting, planning. "There's more," Dr. Anderson continued, leading Michael to a quiet corner. "We found this in her locker." He handed over a worn leather journal, its pages filled with meticulous notes about Emily's daily routines, medical records, and personal observations spanning 3 years. As Michael flipped through the pages, his hands trembling, the full scope of Sarah's surveillance became clear. She had documented everything: Emily's fertility treatments, her volunteer work, her private moments of grief over their inability to conceive. But between the clinical observations were flashes of something else: pride in Emily's accomplishments, anger at their shared past, and a deep, unresolved love for the sister she'd been forced to leave behind. "She watched us for years," Michael whispered, the weight of this revelation crushing down on him. "She saw everything, lived in Emily's shadow, worked alongside her. How did we never notice?" The final pages of the journal revealed Sarah's own medical records: her leukemia diagnosis, her pregnancy, her desperate plan to ensure her child would have a future. The last entry was dated that morning: "Today, everything ends, or perhaps finally something begins." A young nurse interrupted them, holding up a small envelope found taped to the back of the journal. Inside was a letter, Sarah's handwriting sharp and urgent. "Dear Michael, by now you know who I am, what I've done. The baby you hold is my son, but he's also Emily's salvation. The bone marrow in his tiny body could save her life, a final gift from one sister to another. I've already run the compatibility tests in secret. He's a perfect match. I didn't plan for Emily to be sick. When I learned of her leukemia, everything changed. My revenge turned to redemption. You see, I'm dying too. The same disease that took our mother, that's killing Emily, has already claimed me. There's no treatment left for me, but there's hope for her. In my locker you'll find adoption papers already signed. I'm giving my son to you and Emily. Not just to save her life, but because you can give him what I never had: a family that stays together. The fire wasn't meant to hurt anyone. It was meant to burn away the lies, the pain, the years of separation. Perhaps it will burn away my bitterness too. Take care of them both. Tell my son that his mother loved him enough to give him his best chance. Tell Emily that every day I watched her help others, save lives. I was proud to be her sister. Love them like I never could. Sarah." Michael sank into a nearby chair, the letter crumpling in his grip. The baby stirred in the nursery nurse's arms, his tiny face peaceful despite the chaos he'd endured. Looking at him now, Michael could see both sisters in his features: Emily's gentle eyes, Sarah's determined chin. A commotion down the hall drew his attention. Emergency personnel were bringing someone in on a stretcher, a figure badly burned but somehow still alive. Through the swarm of medical staff, Michael caught a glimpse of a small birthmark behind a blistered ear. "Sarah," he breathed, rising to his feet. Against all odds, Emily's twin had survived the inferno. But as he watched the medical team rush her toward the trauma unit, he realized this wasn't the end of their story. It was only the beginning of a much more complex journey toward healing, forgiveness, and the true meaning of family. In Emily's hospital room, the steady beep of monitors provided a rhythm to her confession. Michael sat beside her bed, holding her hand as 25 years of buried truth finally emerged. The baby slept peacefully in a bassinet nearby, while down the hall, Sarah fought for her life in the ICU. "I was 15 when they told us," Emily began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mom's cancer treatments had bankrupted the family. The bank was taking our house. Dad's business had failed. We were going to lose everything." She paused, gathering strength to continue. "Aunt Rebecca offered to help, but she could only take one of us. She would pay for college, medical school, everything I have now." Tears rolled down Emily's cheeks as she recalled that fatal morning. Sarah spoke up before anyone else could. She said, "Take Emily. She's the one who wants to be a doctor. She's the one who can really help people." I tried to protest, but she wouldn't listen. That was Sarah always protecting me, even at her own expense. Michael squeezed her hand, encouraging her to continue. The weight of Emily's guilt filled the room like a physical presence. They sent Sarah to a foster home that afternoon. They said it would be temporary, just until Dad got back on his feet. But things got worse. Mom's cancer came back. Sarah got lost in the system. Every time we found her, she'd been moved somewhere else. Emily's voice cracked as she reached for a glass of water. "I wrote her letters every week for years. They always came back unopened. I hired private investigators, but she kept changing her name. The only constant was that she was studying nursing, following my path in her own way." The truth about their shared illness emerged next. Our mother's leukemia was genetic. Sarah and I both inherited the mutation, but Aunt Rebecca's money meant I got regular screenings, the best preventive care. Sarah probably never even knew she was at risk until it was too late. Michael thought about Sarah's journal, her detailed observations of Emily's life. "She worked here for 3 years, Emily, right beside you. How did you not recognize her?" Emily closed her eyes, fresh tears escaping. "Because I didn't want to see her. Deep down, I think I knew. There were moments, the way she moved, her laugh, little things that seemed so familiar. But facing her meant facing what our family did to her. I couldn't bear the shame." She turned to look at the baby, her nephew, who might now be her salvation. "When I discovered I was pregnant, I was overjoyed. But I also felt guilty. How could I celebrate becoming a mother when I couldn't even protect my own sister?" The full weight of their parallel pregnancy struck them both. 2 sisters, both carrying life while death grew in their blood, one surrounded by love and support, the other alone and desperate. "The night before they separated us," Emily continued, "we made a pact. Sarah and I promised to always protect each other no matter what. She kept her promise. She sacrificed everything for me. But I broke mine. I let her disappear. I chose my comfortable life over finding her." Michael stood and lifted the sleeping baby, bringing him to Emily's bedside. "You have a chance to keep that promise now," he said softly. "Sarah's giving you her son, her bone marrow, a chance to make things right." Emily touched the baby's cheek gently, seeing her sister in his features. "I spent so long running from the past, trying to make up for what happened to Sarah by helping other children. But the one child who needed me most was lost to me." Her monitor began beeping more rapidly as emotion overwhelmed her. "Sarah wanted me to feel what she felt, the pain of abandonment, of losing everything. But instead she's saving my life through her son. How can I ever deserve such forgiveness?" Michael placed the baby in Emily's arms, watching mother and aunt unite in one embrace. "Maybe that's not the point," he said quietly. "Maybe forgiveness isn't about deserving it. Maybe it's about choosing love over pain, future over past." Down the hall, Sarah's burns were being treated, her own battle for survival just beginning. The sisters' path to healing would be long and complex, but for the first time in 25 years, they would walk it together. Dr. Anderson stood at the foot of Sarah's hospital bed, his expression grave as he addressed Michael and Emily. Sarah lay unconscious, her body wrapped in bandages, fighting for every breath. The baby's bassinet sat between the sisters' rooms, a bridge between two worlds of pain. "We're facing an impossible situation," Dr. Anderson began. "Sarah's condition is critical. The burns are severe, but it's the advanced leukemia that's killing her. Without immediate intervention, she has days at most. The baby's umbilical cord blood could save her, but using it would mean it couldn't be used for Emily." Michael finished, understanding dawning on his face. The cruel irony of their situation hung heavy in the air. Emily wheeled to Sarah's room against medical advice, reached out to touch her sister's bandaged hand. "Use it for Sarah," she said without hesitation. "She suffered enough. I won't let her die alone this time." "Emily," "No," Michael protested. "Sarah made her choice. She wants to save you. The adoption papers, the letter she's chosen to give her son a mother." Dr. Anderson cleared his throat. "There's more. The baby's bone marrow could potentially save one of you, but the procedure carries significant risks for an infant this young. The ethics committee is concerned. If anything went wrong, you'd lose both the cord blood and marrow options. We need to decide now which path to take." Emily looked at her sister's burned face, seeing past the bandages to the 15-year-old girl who had sacrificed everything for her. "How many times will I let her sacrifice herself for me? First her future, now her life." "But it's not just about you anymore," Michael reminded her gently. "We have to think about the baby. Sarah wanted him to have a mother. If we save her with the cord blood, and something goes wrong with the marrow transplant later, then he loses both of us," Emily whispered. The weight of their decision pressed down like a physical force. Either way, someone loses everything. A nurse entered with the baby, who had started crying. As she placed him in Emily's arms, his cries immediately ceased. He turned his head towards Sarah's bed, as if sensing his mother's presence even in unconsciousness. "I can't do this," Emily said, tears streaming down her face. "I can't choose between my sister's life and my own, between giving this child his mother or being his mother myself. It's too much." Michael knelt beside her wheelchair. "Then let me make the choice. Sarah entrusted him to us. She's already made her decision to give both of you a future through her son. Honor her choice, Emily. Honor her sacrifice one last time." The baby gripped Emily's finger with surprising strength, and in that moment she saw the truth. "No," she said firmly, "no more sacrifices. No more choosing one sister over the other. There has to be another way." She turned to Dr. Anderson. "The cord blood, how much do you need to save Sarah?" The doctor consulted his charts. Even a partial transfusion could buy her time, but it would reduce the chances of success for your own treatment. "Then split it," Emily declared. "Give Sarah enough to keep her alive and bank the rest. Buy us time to find another solution. I refuse to let this end with another broken family." Michael stared at his wife, seeing the same determination that had driven Sarah to such desperate lengths. "The odds would be against both of you." "Then we'll beat them together," Emily said, reaching again for her sister's hand. "Sarah never gave up on me, even when she had every reason to. Now it's my turn to fight for her. For all of us." Dr. Anderson nodded slowly. "It's risky, but it could work. We'll need consent forms signed immediately." As the doctor left to prepare the procedures, Emily held her nephew close, whispering to her unconscious sister, "You hear that, Sarah? No more choosing. No more sacrifices. This time we save each other, just like we promised all those years ago." The baby cooed softly, his tiny hand reaching toward his mother's bed, as if sealing this new pact between the sisters. In this moment of impossible choices, they had found another way, one paved with hope instead of sacrifice, unity instead of separation. 3 days after the cord blood procedure, Sarah woke from her medically induced coma. Through cracked and blistered lips, she began to tell her story to Michael, who had promised to spend equal time between both sisters' rooms. Emily was too weak from her own treatments to visit, but she listened through a tablet Michael had set up, finally hearing the truth of her sister's lost years. The first foster home wasn't bad, Sarah began, her voice rough from smoke damage. They were kind enough, but temporary. Everyone was always temporary. 6 homes in 3 years. Each time I'd start to feel settled, they'd move me again, but I never stopped watching Emily from afar. She described tracking Emily's achievements through newspaper clippings and social media, the scholarships, the medical school graduation, the marriage to Michael. "I saw you at the wedding," she admitted. "Standing at the back of the church wearing a waitress uniform I'd borrowed. I saw the empty chair with our childhood photo. That's when I knew she hadn't forgotten me." The foster system had hardened Sarah, but it hadn't broken her drive. She worked multiple jobs through high school, earned a nursing scholarship, fought for every opportunity. I wanted to prove I could succeed without Aunt Rebecca's money, without anyone's help. But everywhere I went, I saw Emily shadow her name on medical journals, her face on hospital bulletin boards. The turning point came when Sarah discovered she was pregnant. I had just been diagnosed with leukemia. Stage 4, like Mother. The doctor said I had months, maybe weeks. But then I learned about the baby, and everything changed. I wasn't dying anymore, I was running out of time to secure my child's future. She described the years working at St. Mary's, watching Emily's perfect life while planning her elaborate revelation. "I chose your hospital because I knew Emily would end up there eventually. Our mother's cancer was genetic. I had no money for preventive screenings, but Emily had the best care. I knew one day we'd share the same diagnosis. I just didn't expect it to happen when we were both pregnant." Michael listened as Sarah detailed her surveillance, her careful documentation, her growing understanding of the sister she'd lost. Emily wasn't just successful, she was good. Genuinely, fundamentally good. She spent her own money treating children whose families couldn't pay. She remembered every patient's name, their favorite books, their fears. She became the doctor I always knew she could be. Tears rolled down Sarah's burned cheeks as she continued. That made it harder to hate her. Every time I tried to nurture my anger, she'd do something so perfectly Emily, like spending Christmas Eve reading to the children's ward, or establishing a foundation for families struggling with medical bills. She was living the life I sacrificed myself for her to have. The pregnancy had complicated everything. I planned to leave the baby where Emily would find him. Let her experience the pain of an impossible choice. But then I learned about her fertility struggles, saw her crying in her office after failed treatments. Even in our shared pain, fate gave me what she desperately wanted. Sarah's voice broke as she described the night of the fire. I didn't mean for it to get so out of control. I just wanted to force a confrontation, make Emily face what our family had done. But when Michael followed me into the warehouse, when he told me about Emily's leukemia, I realized I was about to orphan my son for revenge against a sister who had never stopped loving me. The monitors beeped steadily as Sarah fought through her pain to finish her story. In the fire, I saw our mother's face. She died alone, bitter about the choices cancer forced her to make. I couldn't let that be my legacy too. I couldn't let my son grow up thinking his mother chose hatred over hope. She turned to Michael, her bandaged hands trembling. The adoption papers in my locker, I signed them the day I learned about Emily's diagnosis. I knew then that my son could either save his aunt's life or lose both his mother and his aunt to the same disease that took his grandmother. The choice was clear, even if I wasn't ready to accept it. Michael sat in silence, absorbing the weight of Sarah's confession. Through the tablet, he could hear Emily's quiet sobs. 25 years of separation, of misunderstanding and pain, finally laid bare. "Your son," Michael said softly, "he has your strength. The doctors say he's recovering well from the cord blood collection. He's a fighter, like both his mothers. Sarah closed her eyes, exhaustion overtaking her. "Tell Emily. Tell her I understand now. Why she kept the empty chair at her wedding. Why she never stopped searching. Tell her that in the end, it wasn't hate that brought me here, it was love. A sister's love, a mother's love, the kind of love that survives even when everything else burns away." As Sarah drifted back to sleep, Michael looked between the tablet showing Emily's tear-streaked face and the sleeping woman who had risked everything to save her sister, even in her darkest moment of revenge. The truth of their family's tragedy, finally spoken, filled the room with both sorrow and hope that perhaps some wounds, even those 25 years deep, could finally begin to heal. The arrival of Thomas Miller, the twins' father, to St. Mary's Hospital brought another layer of revelation to the family tragedy. Now 70 and stooped with age, he had seen the news of the warehouse fire and recognized Sarah despite her burns. Standing between his daughter's rooms, he finally shared the full truth of that fateful decision 25 years ago. "Your mother's cancer wasn't the only reason we had to separate you," he began, his weathered hands trembling as he pulled out an old envelope. "Aunt Rebecca's offer came with conditions we never told either of you about." Inside the envelope was a contract, yellowed with age, but its terms still clearly legible. Rebecca Thompson, their mother's wealthy sister, had demanded complete separation of the twins. Emily was to cut all ties with her past, including her sister, in exchange for the guarantee of her education and future. She believed that success required sacrifice, Thomas explained, his voice heavy with decades of regret. She saw how close you girls were and thought that bond would hold Emily back. Rebecca wanted to remake Emily in her image, a woman unencumbered by family obligations or emotional attachments. Michael, sitting between the sisters' rooms, felt anger rise in his throat. "You agreed to this? To deliberately separate them?" Thomas shook his head, tears forming in his eyes. "We refused initially, but then your mother's condition worsened. The experimental treatment that might save her was only available overseas, costing more money than we'd make in a lifetime. Rebecca offered to pay for everything: the treatment, Emily's education. A fresh start, but only if we agreed to the separation." Through the tablet connection, Emily's voice cracked with emotion. "You never told me. All these years, I thought it was just about money." "We thought we were protecting you both," Thomas continued. "The doctors gave your mother 6 months without the treatment. With it, she might have years. We convinced ourselves it was worth the price. Sarah was always the stronger one, we told ourselves. She would understand someday." Sarah, listening from her bed, let out a bitter laugh that turned into a cough. "Stronger? I was 15, Dad. I needed my family as much as Emily did." The truth continued to unspool like a poisonous thread. Rebecca had monitored the separation obsessively, hiring private investigators to ensure no contact between the twins. Every returned letter, every failed attempt at reunion had been her doing. She had systematically erased Sarah from Emily's life, believing she was crafting a perfect heiress. "The cruelest part," Thomas said, pulling out another document, "was that your mother's treatment failed anyway. She died 18 months later, begging to see you both together one last time. Rebecca refused to allow it, said it would undo all the progress she'd made with Emily." Emily's sobs echoed through the tablet. "All those years of searching, every time I got close." Rebecca's people got there first, Thomas confirmed, moving Sarah to new foster homes, changing records, creating false trails. She was determined to keep you apart. Sarah's monitor beeped faster as she processed this revelation. "Where is she now?" "Aunt Rebecca." "Dead," Thomas replied flatly. 3 years ago. Her fortune went to various charities. She never admitted she was wrong, never showed remorse for what she'd done to our family." Michael watched the impact of these words hit both sisters. The true architect of their separation had gone to her grave believing she had done the right thing, leaving them to piece together the shattered remains of their relationship. "I've carried this guilt for 25 years," Thomas said, moving to stand between his daughter's rooms. Every Father's Day card from Emily, every birthday Sarah spent alone, every milestone celebrated in isolation, they were all reminders of my failure as a parent. I let money and fear tear apart what should have been unbreakable. He pulled out one final item, a photograph taken the day before the separation. Emily and Sarah sat on their porch swing, arms around each other, identical smiles beaming at the camera. On the back, in childish handwriting, they had written sisters by birth, best friends by choice, together forever. "Your mother never forgave herself," Thomas continued. "She died believing she had sacrificed one daughter's happiness for nothing. Her last words were about you both. She made me promise to tell you the truth someday, to help you find your way back to each other." The silence that followed was heavy with 2.5 decades of lost moments, missed connections, and manufactured distance. Finally, Emily spoke through the tablet, her voice stronger despite her weakness. "Dad, I need you to walk into Sarah's room right now. Take her hand. Tell her what you should have told her 25 years ago." Thomas moved slowly to Sarah's bedside, taking her bandaged hand in his. "Sarah, my brave, beautiful daughter. I am so sorry. Sorry for every birthday missed, every triumph uncelebrated, every moment you faced alone. You deserve so much more than our cowardice gave you." Sarah's burned face contorted with emotion. Did she really ask for me at the end?" "Every day," Thomas whispered. "She said you were the strongest person she'd ever known, giving up everything to save your sister. She was right." Through their tears, both sisters could finally see the full picture of their separation, not a simple choice born of poverty, but a complex web of manipulation, desperation, and misguided intentions. Their parents' impossible choice had been orchestrated by a woman who believed she was engineering success, but had instead created decades of pain. Late that night, after Thomas had gone and both sisters had drifted into uneasy sleep, Michael stood in the hospital chapel, grappling with the weight of everything he'd learned. The baby, now officially named Thomas, after his grandfather, slept peacefully in the nursery, unaware of the complex web of love, pain, and redemption that surrounded his existence. Michael had always prided himself on being able to solve problems. Build a successful company? Done. Create a charitable foundation? Accomplished. But this situation defied simple solutions. Every potential path forward seemed fraught with impossible choices and potential heartbreak. "I don't know what to do anymore," he whispered to the empty chapel. "How do I protect everyone? How do I make this right?" The silence offered no answers, but the act of voicing his fears helped clear his thoughts. He pulled out Sarah's journal, reading it again with new understanding. Every entry showed not just surveillance, but a sister's desperate attempt to remain connected to her twin. She had documented Emily's triumphs and struggles with equal attention, the pride and pain intertwined in every observation. "Mr. Bennett," Dr. Anderson's voice interrupted his thoughts. The doctor looked exhausted, his usual professional demeanor showing cracks of concern. "We need to discuss next steps. The partial cord blood transfusion has stabilized both sisters temporarily, but we're running out of time." Michael straightened, forcing himself to think clearly. "Tell me everything. No medical jargon, no soft peddling. What are we really facing?" The prognosis was brutal in its simplicity. Without full treatment, both sisters would die, Emily within weeks, Sarah possibly sooner due to her burns and advanced disease. The baby's remaining cord blood and bone marrow could potentially save one of them, but not both. Every day they delayed the decision decreased the chances of success for either sister. "There's something else," Dr. Anderson added hesitantly. "Sarah's been asking about voluntary discharge. She wants to refuse further treatment to ensure all remaining cord blood goes to Emily." The news hit Michael like a physical blow. Even now, Sarah was trying to sacrifice herself for her sister. The cycle of sacrifice that had begun 25 years ago was threatening to repeat itself. Standing in the hospital corridor between his wife's room and her sister's, Michael finally understood what he needed to do. He couldn't fix the past, couldn't undo Rebecca's manipulation or his in-laws' desperate choice. But he could change the future. He spent the next hours making calls, pulling strings, leveraging every connection he'd built over his business career. Hospital board members, research institutions, medical experts across the country, no stone was left unturned. Dawn found him in the hospital's research library, surrounded by medical journals and clinical trial reports. He'd learned more about leukemia and bone marrow transplants in one night than he'd ever thought possible. "You look like you haven't slept," Emily observed when he returned to her room. "What are you planning, Michael?" He took her hand, feeling the weakness in her grip. "I'm planning to save both of you. I won't let this family be torn apart again. There's a specialist in Boston who's been developing a new protocol for partial marrow transplants, combining multiple donor sources. It's experimental, but..." "It's dangerous," Emily finished, understanding immediately. "You're talking about using both the cord blood and trying something untested." Michael nodded. "The baby's cord blood, partial marrow donation, and possibly other matching donors. Dr. Anderson is reaching out to the research team now. It's a long shot, but it's better than choosing which sister lives." Emily squeezed his hand weakly. "And if it fails, we could lose everything." "We're already losing everything," Michael replied firmly. "I've watched you search for Sarah for years. I've read her journal, seen how she never stopped loving you, even when she thought she hated you. I won't let this end with another sacrifice." He moved to Sarah's room next, presenting the same plan. Her burns were healing slowly, but her eyes were sharp as she listened. "Why?" she asked finally. "Why fight so hard for someone who tried to destroy your family?" Michael sat beside her bed, choosing his words carefully. "Because you are family. Because every action you took, even the desperate ones, came from love. Because your son deserves to know both his mother and his aunt. Because 25 years of sacrifice is enough." Sarah turned away, but not before Michael saw the tears in her eyes. "I don't deserve this chance." "Maybe not," he agreed gently. "But Emily deserves her sister. Your son deserves his mother. And this family deserves a chance to heal all of us together." The baby's cry from the nursery drew their attention. Through the window, they could see a nurse lifting him, his tiny face scrunched in temporary displeasure. "I promised him," Michael said softly, "that night in the warehouse that I would protect his family. All of his family. I intend to keep that promise." For the first time since the fire, Sarah smiled, a small, painful movement through her healing burns, but genuine. "Emily always said you were stubborn." "She was right," Michael replied, standing. "Now rest. Tomorrow we start fighting not against each other, but for each other. It's time this family learned a new way to love." The hospital's ethics committee meeting was unprecedented in its scope and emotional intensity. In the large conference room, specially converted to accommodate 2 hospital beds, Emily and Sarah lay side by side for the first time in 25 years. Michael stood between them, while Thomas S.R. sat heavily in a corner chair. Dr. Anderson and the committee members faced them across a long table, their expressions grave. "This is highly irregular, Dr. Winters," the committee chair began. "We're being asked to approve an experimental treatment protocol that could potentially endanger all involved parties, including an infant. The liability issues alone..." "With all due respect," Michael interrupted, his voice steady but intense, "we're not here to discuss liability. We're here to save 2 lives and heal a family that's been broken for far too long." The baby's soft coos from his bassinet seemed to underscore the gravity of the moment. Sarah, her burns still raw and painful, turned her head toward her son. Emily reached across the space between their beds, her hand finding her sister's. "The committee has reviewed Mr. Bennett's proposal," Dr. Winters continued. "While the research from Boston is promising, combining partial marrow donation with cord blood transfusion in this way has never been attempted. The risks." I understand the risks, Sarah interrupted, her voice raspy from smoke damage. But I won't let my sister die while there's a chance to save her. And I won't orphan my son if there's any way to prevent it. Emily's voice joined her sister's, weak but determined. We've spent 25 years apart because someone else decided our fates. We're choosing this together. Whatever happens, we face it as sisters. Dr. Anderson stepped forward, spreading out the medical charts. The procedure would be complex. We'd need to coordinate with the Boston team, carefully time the donations, monitor both patients constantly. The strain on both your bodies would be extreme. And the infant, another committee member asked. The physical trauma of multiple marrow extractions, even partial ones. My grandson has already proven stronger than any of us, Thomas S.R. spoke up from his corner. He survived being born early, survived the fire, survived everything fate has thrown at this family. He's a fighter, like his mother and his aunt. The committee members exchanged glances, their professional detachment wavering in the face of such united determination. Dr. Winters removed her glasses, rubbing her eyes tiredly. Even if we approve this, there are practical considerations. The cost alone. I'll cover everything, Michael said firmly. Every doctor, every procedure, every piece of equipment needed. I'll sign whatever waivers you require, but we're doing this. Sarah's monitor beeped erratically as she tried to sit up. Why? Why risk everything like this? Your wife? Your money? Because your family, Michael cut her off. Because I've watched Emily carry the weight of losing you for our entire marriage. Because I've read your journal. Sarah, every entry showing how you watched over your sister, even when you thought you hated her. Because your son deserves to know the incredible strength of both his mother and his aunt. Tears streamed down Sarah's burned face. I tried to destroy your family. I left my baby in an alley. I set a fire that almost killed us all. How can you still call me family? Emily's grip on her sister's hand tightened. Because you're my sister. Because every terrible choice you made came from love twisted by pain. Because I never stopped looking for you, even when it seemed hopeless. The baby began to fuss, and a nurse brought him to Sarah. As she held her son, Emily reached across to touch his tiny hand. The sisters' tears mingled as they shared this moment, the first of many they hoped to have. Dr. Winters watched this exchange, her professional resolve crumbling. The committee needs to confer. But before we do, I want to be clear about something. If we approve this, there's no guarantee of success. We could lose both of you. We've already been lost to each other for 25 years, Emily said softly. A few more weeks or months alone means nothing. But a chance to truly be sisters again, to heal our family's wounds, that's worth any risk. Sarah nodded, her burned features set in determination. We're done letting fear and other people's choices separate us. Whatever happens, we face it together. The committee members filed out, leaving the family alone. Michael looked between the sisters, seeing their mother's strength in both their faces. The baby slept peacefully, one hand clutching Sarah's hospital gown, the other wrapped around Emily's finger. Whatever they decide, Michael said quietly, know that you've already changed everything. You've shown that love can survive anything, even 25 years of separation, even fire, even death itself. Thomas S.R. moved to stand between his daughters' beds, placing a hand on each of their shoulders. Your mother would be so proud of you both, not for the pain you've endured, but for finding your way back to each other, despite everything. The sisters lay in silence, hands still clasped, waiting for the committee's decision. But in their hearts, they had already won their greatest victory. They were together, and this time nothing would tear them apart. The Ethics Committee's approval came with strict conditions, but it came. As the Boston medical team arrived and preparations began, Sarah faced her own private battle for redemption. In the quiet hours before dawn, she asked to see every person she had wronged during her years of planning revenge. She started with the hospital staff she had deceived while working as Claire Thompson. One by one, nurses and doctors came to her room, hearing her painful confessions and apologies. Most were stunned to learn the full story, many moved to tears by the depth of her regret and the complexity of her motivations. "I justified everything with my pain," she told her former supervisor, Dr. Matthews. "But watching Emily all those years taught me something important. True strength isn't in surviving trauma, it's in refusing to pass that trauma on to others." The hardest conversation was with Martha, the Bennett's housekeeper, who had unknowingly helped Sarah gain access to their home. The elderly woman listened to Sarah's confession in silence, then surprised everyone by taking Sarah's bandaged hand. "I've worked for wealthy families for 40 years, Martha said softly. "I've seen how privilege can corrupt, how money can destroy. But I've also seen how love can heal. You chose love in the end, dear. That's what matters." As the medical preparations continued, Sarah insisted on documenting everything, not in the obsessive way she had tracked Emily before, but as a testament to hope and healing. She dictated letters to her son, to be given to him at different ages, explaining her choices and their consequences. "My dearest Thomas," one letter began, "by the time you read this, you'll be old enough to understand the complicated truth of your birth. I want you to know that every choice I made, even the worst ones, came from a place of love, twisted and broken love. But love nonetheless. Your Aunt Emily taught me that love doesn't have to break things to be real." Emily, growing stronger thanks to the initial treatments, spent hours in Sarah's room. The sisters talked about everything and nothing: childhood memories, lost years, hopes for the future. They laughed about shared mannerisms that even 25 years of separation couldn't erase, cried over the milestones they had missed in each other's lives. "I used to imagine you at every important moment," Emily confessed. "My medical school graduation, my wedding, every achievement I would look for you in the crowd, hoping somehow you'd found your way back to me." Sarah smiled through her healing burns. "I was there for more of them than you knew, always watching, telling myself I was gathering ammunition for revenge. But really, I think I just couldn't bear to be completely separated from you." The Boston team's arrival brought a new intensity to Sarah's redemption journey. As they explained the risks and procedures, she insisted on knowing every detail, determined to face whatever came with complete awareness. "If something goes wrong," she told Michael privately, "if you have to choose, save Emily. My son needs at least one of us to survive, and she's always been the better person." But Michael refused to accept her sacrifice. "Your son needs his mother, his real mother, not just stories about her nobility and death. We save you both, or we keep trying until we do." Sarah's burns continued to heal, revealing the familiar features that mirrored Emily's. The sisters often caught staff members doing double takes, still amazed by their identical appearance. But it was their differences that fascinated Sarah, now the ways life had shaped them, the unique strengths they had developed. "You became everything Aunt Rebecca wanted," Sarah observed one evening. "Successful, respected, genuinely good. But you did it without losing your heart. That's what she never understood. True strength comes from connection, not isolation." As the date for the experimental procedure approached, Sarah found her final opportunity for redemption in an unexpected way. The hospital's pediatric cancer ward, where Emily had spent so much time, was struggling with funding cuts. Sarah asked Michael to bring her laptop to her bed. "I want to tell our story," she announced. "Not just the tragedy, but the hope. Every family who's been torn apart by illness or circumstance needs to know that healing is possible." Together with Emily, she began writing. Their story, published anonymously at first in medical journals and then more widely, sparked a movement. Donations poured in, not just for the pediatric ward, but for a new foundation dedicated to helping separated families reunite. "See," Emily said, reading the responses to their story. "Your pain, your journey, it's already helping others heal. That's the real redemption, isn't it?" Sarah held her son, watching him grip Emily's finger. I spent so many years letting pain define me. Now I want my love to define me, love for him, for you, for our whole complicated, beautiful family. The night before the procedure was set to begin, Sarah asked to have her bed moved next to Emily's. The sisters lay side by side, just as they had as children, their hands clasped between them. "Whatever happens tomorrow," Sarah whispered, "thank you for showing me that it's never too late to choose love over hate, healing over hurt." Emily squeezed her hand. "We're just beginning, sister, just beginning." The day of the experimental procedure dawned with a tense anticipation that filled the entire hospital wing. Dr. Henderson, the specialist from Boston, stood before the assembled medical team, his face grave as he outlined the complex series of treatments ahead. "We'll begin with Sarah," he explained, gesturing to the detailed timeline projected on the wall. "Her burns and advanced disease progression make her our most critical patient. The first partial marrow extraction from the infant will be dedicated to her treatment." Emily, lying in her preparation bed, interrupted. "No, start with Sarah's cord blood treatment first. We know that's the safest option for immediate intervention." Sarah struggled to sit up despite her burns. "Emily, don't. You're just as critical. The cord blood was meant for you." Enough. Michael stepped between them. "Dr. Henderson, explain exactly what happens if we deviate from your protocol. No medical jargon, just the truth." The doctor sighed heavily. "If we start with the cord blood treatment for Emily, we risk losing Sarah before we can begin her marrow procedure. Her system is significantly compromised from the fire. However, if we focus on Sarah first, Emily's condition could deteriorate beyond our ability to treat effectively." The baby's cry from the nursery cut through the tension. A nurse brought him in, and his presence seemed to calm both sisters. He reached equally for both of them, unaware that his tiny body held the key to their survival. "There's another consideration," Dr. Henderson continued reluctantly, "the strain of multiple extractions on an infant this young. We're in uncharted territory. Each procedure increases the risk to the child." The room fell silent as the full weight of their situation settled over everyone. They weren't just fighting to save two sisters, they were gambling with 3 lives, including that of an innocent baby. Sarah broke the silence, her voice stronger than her weakened body suggested. "I want to withdraw from the procedure." "Sarah," no, Emily began, but her sister continued. "Listen to me, all of you. I've spent 25 years letting others make impossible choices about our family. I won't let that happen again. This is my choice. Save Emily. Save my son. Let me go knowing I finally did something right." Michael stepped forward, his face set with determination. "No, no more sacrifices. Sarah, you once wrote in your journal that you watched Emily help others, save lives, change the world. But you never saw that you had the same power. Your son needs both of you, the aunt who shows him how to help others, and the mother who shows him how to rise from the ashes of pain." Dr. Henderson cleared his throat. There might be a third option. It's even more experimental, but he paused, looking at his data. "If we synchronize the treatments, conduct them simultaneously, using both cord blood and marrow in carefully timed infusions, we might be able to support both systems enough to." "The risk," Michael demanded, "higher than treating them separately. We'd be pushing every boundary of known medical science. The strain on all 3 patients would be extreme. If anything goes wrong, we could lose everyone." Emily reached for Sarah's hand across the space between their beds. "Together," she said simply, "like we should have been all along." Sarah looked at her son, then at her sister, and finally at Michael. "You've all fought so hard to save me from others, from myself. Maybe it's time I fought too." The medical team sprung into action, preparing for the most complex procedure many of them would ever attempt. The sisters held hands as the preliminary medications were administered, their beds positioned side by side in the specially prepared operating room. "Emily," Sarah whispered, as the drugs began to take effect. If this doesn't work. It will work, Emily insisted. We have 25 years of life to catch up on. I'm not losing you again. Michael stood between them, holding their free hands, watching the medical team prepare their son for his role in this desperate gamble. You're both the strongest people I know, he told them. And strength runs in your family all the way down to this little warrior. Dr. Henderson approached, his surgical mask in place. It's time. Last chance to change the protocol. The sisters exchanged one look, a look that contained 25 years of separation, of pain, of love, of hope. Then, together, they nodded. Save us all, Sarah said firmly, or let us go together. No more choosing, no more separation. As the anesthesia began to take hold, Emily squeezed her sister's hand one last time. See you on the other side, sister. We have so much life left to live. The last thing Sarah saw before consciousness faded was Michael holding their son, his lips moving in what might have been a prayer. The last thing she felt was her sister's hand in hers, just as it had been 25 years ago on that porch swing, before the world tore them apart. The operating room doors closed, and the most daring medical procedure St. Mary's Hospital had ever attempted began. Outside, Thomas S.R. sat in the waiting room, holding a photograph of two young girls on a porch swing, their whole lives ahead of them. Above them all, a morning sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light through the hospital windows, a light of hope, of possibility, of redemption. 12 hours into the synchronized procedures, alarms began blaring in the operating room. Sarah's vital signs were crashing, her body struggling against both the treatments and a devastating truth the medical team was only now discovering. Her cancer isn't just advanced, Dr. Henderson announced grimly, staring at the latest test results. It's mutated. The genetic markers suggest it's a rare variant, more aggressive than anything we've seen. Even if the treatment works, she has weeks at most. Michael, who had been watching from the observation room, felt his knees buckle. Through the glass he could see both sisters lying unconscious, still connected by their clasped hands, while their son slept in the adjacent room, recovering from his part in the procedure. Dr. Henderson emerged from the operating room, his surgical mask pulled down, revealing a face etched with concern. Mr. Bennett, we need to make a decision. Continuing the treatment might give Sarah a few more weeks, but the strain could kill her immediately. If we stop now, Emily still has a chance. Does she know? Michael asked, his voice barely a whisper. Did Sarah know when she agreed to this? The doctor nodded slowly. We found her private medical records. She was diagnosed 3 months ago at another hospital. She knew exactly how long she had left when she started planning everything. The revelation hit Michael like a physical blow. Every entry in Sarah's journal took on new meaning. She hadn't just been planning revenge, she'd been racing against time. But her desperation to secure her son's future wasn't just about abandonment, it was about knowing she wouldn't be there to protect him. The fire, Michael realized aloud. She never expected to survive it. That's why she was so willing to stay behind. She was already dying. A nurse appeared with more test results. Dr. Henderson reviewed them, his expression growing even graver. The mutation is spreading faster than we anticipated. The trauma from the burns accelerated everything. We need to make a choice now. Through the observation window, Michael watched the sisters. Even unconscious, they maintained their connection, hands linked across the space between their beds. 25 years of separation, and now fate was threatening to separate them permanently. What would stopping the treatment mean for Sarah, he asked. Pain management, comfort care. Maybe a few days of consciousness to say goodbye. But Emily would almost certainly survive with the treatments we've already completed. Michael closed his eyes, remembering Sarah's words from the night before. No more choosing. No more separation. How could he honor that now, knowing that continuing might kill her faster, while stopping would definitely save Emily? The baby's cry from the recovery room provided his answer. Michael straightened, finding strength he didn't know he had left. Continue the treatment. Mr. Bennett, you need to understand. I understand perfectly, Michael interrupted. Sarah chose this. She chose to fight, to try for a miracle, knowing she might not survive either way. We owe her the chance to fight until the end, on her own terms. Dr. Henderson studied him for a long moment before nodding. We'll need additional consent forms. And you should prepare yourself and Emily for what might happen. Emily needs to know everything, Michael agreed. But not until she's strong enough to handle it. Sarah gave up everything to protect her sister. We can protect her a little longer. As the medical team resumed their work, Michael entered the recovery room where his son lay sleeping. The tiny warrior who held both his mother's and his aunt's fate in his newborn body. He picked up the baby gently, walking him to the observation window. Look at them, he whispered to his son. Your mother is the bravest person I've ever known. She knew she was dying, but she still chose to give everyone else a chance to live. That's real love, son. That's real strength. Through the glass, Sarah's monitors continued their ominous beeping, while Emily's showed signs of improvement. The sisters lay suspended between life and death, their hands still joined, their fates still intertwined. Michael held his son closer, watching the medical team fight for both sisters' lives. Whatever happens, he promised the baby, you'll know everything. About your mother's courage, your aunt's love, and how they both fought to give you a future, no matter the cost. 3 days after the procedure, Emily regained consciousness to find her condition improving, but Sarah still unconscious, her burns and illness taking a devastating toll. The truth of Sarah's terminal diagnosis lay heavy in the room, though no one had yet told Emily directly. Something's wrong, Emily insisted, watching her sister's monitors with a doctor's trained eye. Her numbers should be better than this. The treatment should be working for both of us. Why am I improving while she's... She couldn't finish the sentence. Michael sat beside her, holding her hand, trying to find the right words to explain what they'd discovered. But Emily's medical knowledge made hiding the truth impossible. It's a mutation, isn't it? She asked quietly, studying Sarah's charts. The genetic marker we inherited from Mom. It's evolved in her case. More aggressive, and the burns from the fire, her voice broke as the full implications hit her. Michael could only nod, watching his wife's face crumple with the weight of understanding. Emily turned to look at her sister, tears streaming down her face. She knew, Emily whispered. All this time, while she was watching me, planning everything. She was dying, just like Mom. And I never saw it. I was so caught up in my perfect life, my successful career saving other people's lives, that I couldn't see my own sister dying right in front of me. She tried to get out of bed, wanting to reach Sarah, but her weakness from the procedure kept her confined. I should have looked harder for her, should have fought Aunt Rebecca's restrictions, should have found a way to tell her I never stopped loving her, never stopped missing her. Emily, you can't blame yourself, Michael started, but Emily cut him off. Can't I? I'm the doctor, Michael. I'm the one who specializes in genetic conditions. I should have known the risks, should have insisted on finding her for medical screening if nothing else. All those years of preventive care I received while she... Her monitors began beeping more rapidly as her distress grew. A nurse rushed in to check her vitals, but Emily waved her away, focused entirely on her sister's still form. Do you know what it's like? She asked Michael, her voice raw with pain, to realize that while you were building your perfect life, your other half was suffering. That every triumph you celebrated was matched by her loss, that she had to face our mother's disease alone, knowing exactly what was coming. Because I wasn't there to help her. Michael watched helplessly as his wife's guilt poured out. She made her choices, Emily. She chose to give you that life. At 15. We were children, Michael. She sacrificed everything for me at 15, and then had to watch me live the life she should have shared. No wonder she wanted revenge. I would have hated me too. Emily reached across the space between their beds, taking Sarah's bandaged hand in hers. "I'm so sorry, sister. Sorry I didn't fight harder to find you. Sorry I accepted the comfort and safety while you struggled. Sorry I wasn't there when you faced Mum's diagnosis alone." The baby's cry from the nursery drew their attention. A nurse brought him in, and Emily took her nephew in her arms for the first time since learning the full truth about his mother. "He has her strength," Emily observed, touching his tiny face. "That same determination I remember from when we were young. She was always the brave one, you know, always the one who faced things head-on while I held back." She looked at Michael, her eyes filled with a desperate kind of hope. "Promise me something. Promise me that no matter what happens, he'll know everything about her. Not just the end, not just the pain and revenge, but everything. How she protected me from bullies in school. How she could make anyone laugh even on their worst day. How she gave up everything so I could have a chance at my dreams." Michael took her free hand, squeezing it gently. "He'll know it all, Emily. Every story, every sacrifice, every moment of love that brought us here." Emily held her nephew closer, watching her sister's chest rise and fall with each assisted breath. "I never deserved her sacrifice," she whispered, "but I promise you, Sarah, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of it." 5 days after the procedure, Sarah opened her eyes. Her first conscious moments were filled with pain from the burns, from the cancer eating away at her body, from the treatments meant to save her. But through it all, she saw Emily sitting beside her bed, alive and improving, and managed a small smile. "You're getting better," Sarah whispered, her voice rough from the breathing tube recently removed. It worked. Emily, who had insisted on being moved to a chair, despite her own weakness, leaned forward to grasp her sister's hand. "Yes, thanks to you. Thanks to your son. But Sarah, why didn't you tell me about the mutation? About how advanced it was?" Sarah's burned features contorted with effort as she tried to speak. "Couldn't risk you stopping the procedure. Couldn't let you sacrifice your chance to save me. Not again." The monitors beeped steadily, marking each precious moment the sisters had left. The doctors had been clear Sarah's improvement was temporary. The aggressive mutation was still spreading, accelerated by the trauma of her burns. "I found your other medical records," Emily said softly. 3 months. You knew for 3 months and faced it alone, just like Mom." Sarah turned her head slightly, looking at her sister. "Not alone. I watched you every day, saw you saving children, giving hope to families like ours once was. It helped, knowing the sacrifice was worth it." Emily's tears fell onto their clasped hands. "But the price, Sarah, the price was too high." "No price is too high for love," Sarah whispered. "I learned that from you. Watching you all these years, seeing how you turned your success into hope for others. You made every sacrifice worthwhile." Michael entered with the baby, and Sarah's face lit up at the sight of her son. Emily helped position the infant carefully beside his mother, mindful of her burns and the medical equipment. "He's so strong," Sarah marveled, touching his cheek with bandaged fingers. "Like his aunt." "Like his mother," Emily corrected. "Sarah, please. There must be something else we can try. Some experimental treatment, some new research." Sarah shook her head slightly. "No more fighting fate. I'm tired, Emily. But I'm not afraid anymore. My son saved you. You'll save him. The circle is complete." The baby gripped one of Sarah's bandaged fingers, and she smiled through her pain. "Promise me something." "Anything," Emily whispered. "Tell him everything. Not just the end, not just the darkness. Tell him about the porch swing, and summer evenings and 2 sisters who loved each other enough to sacrifice everything. Tell him love doesn't have to break things to be real." Emily nodded, unable to speak through her tears. Michael stepped forward, taking Sarah's other hand. "He'll know every story he promised. Every memory, every moment. He'll know his mother was a warrior who fought through pain to give others a chance at happiness. Sarah's monitors showed her weakening, but her eyes remained clear and focused. Emily. "I'm here, sister." "Do you remember what we promised that last night? On the porch swing?" Emily's voice broke as she answered, "To always be together, no matter what." "We kept that promise," Sarah whispered. "In our hearts we never really separated. And now you'll carry me forward. In him, in you, in every life you save." The sun was setting outside the hospital window, casting the room in soft golden light. Sarah looked at her son one last time, then at her sister. "I'm not leaving you," she said softly. "I'm just going ahead, like I always did when we were young. But this time you have to stay. Stay and live the life we both dreamed of. For him, for me, for us." Emily bent forward, resting her forehead against her sister's, just as they had done as children. "I love you, Sarah. I never stopped. Not for one moment in 25 years. Sarah's smile was peaceful, even through her pain. "I know. I love you too. Always have. Always will." The monitors continued their steady rhythm as the sisters held each other, their nephew between them, while the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and pink. The price of salvation was steep, but in that moment, surrounded by love, it felt like grace. 2 days before Sarah passed away, a package arrived at the hospital. The courier insisted it had to be delivered directly to Michael, with specific instructions that it should only be opened after Sarah's death. Now, sitting in his study a week after the funeral, Michael finally broke the seal on the thick manila envelope. Inside, he found a stack of legal documents and a handwritten letter in Sarah's careful script. As he read, his hands began to tremble. "Dear Michael, if you're reading this, then our last great gamble has played out exactly as I predicted. Emily is alive, our son is safe, and I've finally found my peace. What you hold in your hands is my final gift to our family. 3 months ago, when I received my diagnosis, I did more than just plan my revenge. I began liquidating every asset I had, selling everything of value, and investing it all in a trust for our son. But that's not all. During my years watching Emily, I did more than just observe. I studied, I researched, I followed every lead about our mother's illness. And I found something, a small research facility in Switzerland working on genetic mutations like ours. I've spent every penny I had funding their research. The documents you're holding include all their findings, their progress, their breakthroughs. They're close, Michael, close to understanding why the mutation affects some of us differently, why it turned so aggressive in my case. Emily's children, our son's future children, they all carry this same genetic legacy. I couldn't save myself, but maybe this research can save them. I've arranged for all future findings to be sent directly to Emily. My last act of protection for the family I almost destroyed." Michael set down the letter, his vision blurring with tears. The accompanying documents revealed the extent of Sarah's sacrifice. She had sold her house, her car, cashed in her retirement funds, worked extra shifts at multiple hospitals, all to fund this research and create a future for her son. But there was more. The final document was a recorded testimony, legally witnessed and notarized, absolving Emily of any guilt in their separation. Sarah had detailed everything: Aunt Rebecca's manipulation, their parents' impossible choice, her own decision to sacrifice herself for her sister's future. I couldn't leave Emily carrying the weight of our past, Sarah had written. She needs to be free to live, to love our son, to continue saving lives without the shadow of guilt darkening her joy. This is my true revenge against fate, turning our pain into hope, our separation into purpose. Michael gathered the documents, his heart heavy with the weight of Sarah's final gift. She had transformed her dying months into a mission of love, working tirelessly to protect a future she would never see. In the nursery down the hall, he could hear Emily singing softly to their son Sarah's son, who they had officially adopted the day before she passed. The baby who carried both sisters' legacy in his blood, and now their hope in his future. "You never stopped being a sister," Michael whispered to Sarah's memory. "Even in your darkest moments you were protecting her, protecting all of us." He stood, gathering the documents to share with Emily when she was stronger. Outside his study window, the sun was setting in brilliant shades of orange and pink, the same colors that had painted the sky the day Sarah had found her peace, surrounded by the family she had given everything to save. The revelation came in the form of a worn leather diary found among Sarah's possessions. Their mother's journal, kept secret for 25 years, told a story far different from what either sister had known. Emily sat in Sarah's former hospital room, now empty except for Michael and their sleeping son, as she read the painful truth aloud. "My dearest daughters," the journal began, "if you're reading this, then the choice we made has already torn your lives apart. But there's something you need to know, something we never told either of you." The pages revealed that Aunt Rebecca's offer hadn't been spontaneous. She had orchestrated the entire situation, deliberately withholding financial help during their mother's first bout with cancer until the family was desperate enough to accept her terms. She wanted Emily, their mother had written. She'd always wanted a daughter to mold in her image, and she saw in Emily the perfect candidate. But she knew we'd never give up one of our children willingly. So she waited, watched us sink deeper into debt, watched us grow more desperate with each medical bill. Tears fell onto the weathered pages as Emily read how Rebecca had presented her offer as a blessing, a chance to save one daughter from poverty. But the truth was more calculated. She had engineered their financial ruin, ensuring they would have no choice but to accept her terms. "The night before we told you," the journal continued, "your father and I tried to find another way. We called every relative, every friend, every bank. But Rebecca had been thorough. She'd quietly convinced everyone that helping us would only enable our poor financial decisions. She'd planned everything, knowing exactly how to break us." Michael held Emily as she read about her parents' final, desperate attempt to keep their daughters together. They had even considered running away, starting over somewhere new. But their mother's cancer was spreading, and Rebecca made it clear that without her help, neither girl would have a mother for much longer. Sarah's sacrifice saved us all, their mother had written. When she spoke up, offering herself to foster care so Emily could have a better life, it broke something in me. But Rebecca had won. She knew that Sarah's noble choice would make it impossible for us to fight back without seeming selfish, ungrateful. The final pages were stained with tears, their mother's, and now Emily's. "My beautiful, brave Sarah, you thought you were choosing to save your sister, but Rebecca had chosen for all of us long before. And Emily, my precious girl, you thought you were the lucky one, never knowing you were actually the target of a manipulation that destroyed our family." Emily closed the journal, her hands shaking. "All these years I thought I was the fortunate one. But I was just a pawn in Aunt Rebecca's game. And Sarah, oh God, Sarah never knew. She died thinking she had made the choice, that she had saved me." Michael gathered her in his arms as she broke down, their son sleeping peacefully nearby, unaware of the weight of history being uncovered around him. "She did save you," Michael said softly. "Maybe Rebecca orchestrated the situation, but Sarah's love was real. Her choice to protect you, even at the end, was real." Emily looked at her son, Sarah's son, seeing in his peaceful face echoes of both sisters. "We have to tell him everything when he's older. Not just about Sarah's courage, but about the manipulation that tried to break us. He needs to know that love can survive even the most carefully planned destruction." The setting sun cast long shadows across the hospital room where Sarah had found her peace, where sisters had reunited, where truth had finally emerged from decades of careful lies. In the quiet, Emily held her mother's journal close, feeling for the first time that she could forgive herself for being the chosen one. She hadn't been lucky, she had been weaponized against her own sister. But Sarah's love had proven stronger than any manipulation, lasting beyond even death itself. In the weeks following Sarah's passing, Emily found herself drawn to the box she had kept hidden in her office for 25 years. Inside were hundreds of letters, private investigator reports, and photographs, a chronicle of her relentless search for her sister. The earliest letters, written in a teenager's hopeful hand, bore return to sender stamps: "Dear Sarah, I started college today. My roommate has a twin sister too. They finish each other's sentences, just like we used to. I miss you so much it hurts to breathe." Each year brought new attempts. Emily had hired detective after detective, each one finding traces of Sarah only to lose her trail again. Now she understood why Rebecca's people had always been one step ahead, orchestrating an elaborate dance of near misses and lost connections. "I found these in her apartment," Michael said softly, placing a matching box on Emily's desk. Inside were all the letters Emily had sent, carefully preserved though never opened. Sarah had kept them all, carrying her sister's words with her even when she couldn't bear to read them. Emily lifted out a newspaper clipping from 15 years ago, her first major surgical success, saving a child with a rare genetic condition. In the photo's background, barely visible, was a nurse watching from the doorway. Sarah had been there, witnessing her sister's triumph, while planning what she thought would be her revenge. She never missed a single important moment, Emily realized, sorting through more clippings. While I was searching everywhere else, she was right beside me, watching, waiting, loving me even through her pain. The most recent private investigator's report was dated just 3 months before Sarah's reappearance. Emily had been so close to finding her, not knowing that by then, Sarah was already working in her own hospital, already carrying her son, already dying. "I spent a fortune trying to find her," Emily told Michael, touching the stack of reports. "Hired the best investigators, followed every lead. But she was always just out of reach. Now I know why she needed to find her way back to me on her own terms." The final item in Emily's box was a photograph taken the day before their separation, 2 identical girls on their porch swing, arms around each other, smiling at a future they couldn't imagine. Emily had carried a copy in her wallet every day for 25 years. Now she discovered Sarah had done the same. Her copy was found in her nurse's locker, worn from years of handling. "She never stopped being my sister," Emily whispered, holding both photographs side by side. "Even when she was planning to destroy my life, she was really trying to save it. She knew the leukemia would find me eventually, just as it found her. Everything she did, the surveillance, the planning, even taking the job at my hospital, it was all to be there when I needed her most." Michael wrapped his arms around his wife as she finally allowed herself to grieve, not just for Sarah's death, but for all the years they had lost. Their son, Sarah's greatest gift, slept peacefully in his carrier, unaware of the weight of love and sacrifice that had brought him into their lives. "She found me," Emily said softly, touching the photographs. "In the end, when it mattered most, she found her way back to me. And this time, nothing will separate us again." 1 year after Sarah's passing, St. Mary's Hospital unveiled its newest wing, the Sarah Miller Center for Genetic Research and Family Reunification. Emily stood at the podium during the opening ceremony, her son Thomas Jr. in her arms, facing a crowd of medical professionals, former patients and families who had been touched by their story. "My sister understood something fundamental about healing," Emily began, her voice strong despite her emotion. "She knew that physical illness often mirrors our emotional wounds, that sometimes the greatest medical breakthrough comes not from a laboratory, but from the simple act of refusing to let go of love." The center represented everything Sarah had fought for, funded by the research trust she had established and expanded through the Bennett Foundation. Its dual mission reflected the complexity of her legacy, advancing the study of genetic diseases while helping separated families find their way back to each other. In the main lobby hung a striking portrait, Sarah in her nurse's uniform, her face serene and determined. Beside it, a plaque told their story, 2 sisters separated by circumstance, reunited by fate, and bound together by a love stronger than time or distance. Below the portrait, A quote from Sarah's final letter, "Love doesn't have to break things to be real." The research facility housed the Swiss team Sarah had funded, now working in collaboration with doctors worldwide. Their latest findings had already identified why the genetic mutation affected some family members more aggressively than others. Emily, her own health now stable, worked closely with them, determined to ensure no other family would face the same devastating choices. "Sarah's greatest gift wasn't just saving my life," Emily continued at the podium. "It was showing us that healing is possible even after decades of pain, that forgiveness can rise from the ashes of revenge, that love, even when twisted by suffering, can find its way back to truth." Thomas Jr., now a toddler, reached toward his mother's face, wiping away tears she hadn't realized were falling. The gesture, so like something Sarah would have done, brought fresh emotion to Emily's voice. "This center will carry forward my sister's legacy. Every family reunited, every medical breakthrough, every life saved will be a testament to her belief that it's never too late to choose love over pain, healing over hurt." The facility's first success story stood in the audience, a young woman who had found her twin brother after 20 years of separation, their reunion facilitated by the center's resources. Their presence was living proof that Sarah's vision extended beyond her own family's healing. "My sister spent years watching me save other people's lives," Emily concluded, holding her son closer. "Now, through this center, through all of you, she'll go on saving lives and healing families forever. She transformed her pain into purpose, her revenge into redemption, and in doing so, she taught us all what real strength looks like." As the ribbon was cut and the doors officially opened, Emily carried Thomas through the facility's halls. Each room held state-of-the-art medical equipment alongside comfortable spaces for families to reconnect. It was exactly as Sarah would have wanted, the perfect blend of scientific advancement and human connection. In the children's waiting area, a mural depicted two young girls on a porch swing, their faces full of joy and promise. Beneath it, Sarah's words were painted in elegant script: "Some bonds can never be broken. Some love never dies. It just waits, patient and true, for hearts to find their way home." Thomas reached out to touch the mural, his tiny hand resting where the sisters' hands clasped in eternal unity. Emily held him closer, feeling Sarah's presence in every detail of the center that bore her name. "Your mother's love," she whispered to her son, "will change the world. One family, one breakthrough, one healing at a time." On Thomas Jr.'s second birthday, the Bennetts gathered at the family home for a celebration that was both joyous and bittersweet. Emily had transformed the garden into a wonderland of lights and flowers, with photographs of Sarah displayed prominently among the decorations. Thomas Sr., now fully recovered from his own guilt and grief, sat watching his grandson toddle between guests. The little boy had Sarah's determined chin and Emily's gentle eyes, a living bridge between the sisters who had loved him so completely. "He has her spirit," Thomas Sr. observed to Emily as they watched the child fearlessly climb onto Michael's shoulders. That same fearlessness, that absolute certainty about what he wants, just like Sarah at that age. Emily squeezed her father's hand, their relationship stronger now after working through their shared pain. "Tell me more about her as a child," she requested. "The years I missed, the memories I didn't get to share." And so, surrounded by birthday cake and children's laughter, Thomas Sr. began sharing stories he had held back for decades. He told of Sarah's first day of school after the separation, how she had insisted on wearing the same outfit Emily had chosen states away, their twin connection transcending distance. Martha, the housekeeper who had unknowingly helped Sarah gain access to the Bennett home, had become like a grandmother to Thomas Jr. She shared her own memories of Sarah's time disguised as a nurse, noting how she would sometimes pause in Emily's office, touching photographs with a gentleness that belied her supposed hatred. Even when she thought she wanted revenge, Martha reflected, love kept breaking through, You could see it in the little things, how she'd straighten Emily's medical journals, leave fresh coffee on her desk, watch over her patients when she thought no one was looking. Michael had preserved everything from Sarah's apartment, her journals, her research, her carefully collected photographs of Emily's life. On this day, he brought out a special album he had created, combining both sisters' perspectives of the same events: Emily's graduation from medical school, shown alongside Sarah's hidden photograph of herself, watching from the crowd, Emily's wedding next to Sarah's view from the back of the church. She was always there, Emily realized, turning the pages with trembling hands. Every important moment, every triumph and tragedy. We were never really separated, not in our hearts. The highlight of the celebration was a video message Sarah had recorded for her son's future birthdays. As her face appeared on the screen, every adult fell silent, watching Thomas Jr. reach toward his mother's image with instant recognition. "My darling boy," Sarah's voice filled the garden, strong and clear despite her illness when recording. "Today you're 2, and I'm seeing you through your Aunt Emily's eyes, loving you through her heart. Remember that you were born from love, not revenge, not bitterness, but the purest love a mother could feel." Emily held her nephew close as they watched together, tears flowing freely as Sarah continued, "You have 2 mothers, sweet boy, one who gave you life, and one who will help you live it. Love them both, forgive them both. And know that every time you show courage, every time you choose love over anger, every time you help heal someone's pain, you're carrying forward the best parts of both your mothers." As the video ended, Thomas Jr. turned to Emily with perfect clarity. "Mama Sarah," he said, pointing to the screen, then touched Emily's cheek. "Mama Emily." The simple truth of a child's understanding broke through any remaining barriers of guilt and grief. In that moment, surrounded by family and memories, Emily felt Sarah's presence more strongly than ever, not as a ghost of past pain, but as a continuing source of love and strength. The garden lights twinkled like stars, and somewhere, Emily was certain, Sarah was watching, smiling, at peace with the family her sacrifice had helped heal. 5 years after Sarah's passing, Emily stood in the garden where they had celebrated Thomas Jr.'s 2nd birthday. The space had become a sanctuary of memories and new beginnings, filled with Sarah's favorite flowers and the sounds of children's laughter. Thomas Jr., now 7, sat on the same porch swing where his mother and aunt had made their childhood promises. Beside him was his new sister, Hope Sarah Bennett, born to Emily and Michael 2 years earlier. The genetic research Sarah had funded had helped ensure Hope would not carry the mutation that had claimed her aunt's life. "Tell me about Mama Sarah again," Hope requested, her small hand clasped in her brother's. Thomas Jr., already his sister's fierce protector, began the story they both knew by heart. "Our mother was the bravest person in the world," he said proudly. "She loved so much that she saved everyone, even when she was hurting. And now she watches over us from heaven, making sure we remember that love is stronger than anything." Emily watched her children from the doorway, marveling at how Sarah's legacy lived on in these young hearts. The Sarah Miller Center had grown beyond their wildest dreams, helping hundreds of families reunite while making groundbreaking advances in genetic research. Michael joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Sarah would love this," he said softly. Her son teaching her story to her niece, the garden blooming, the family whole and healing. The porch swing creaked gently as the children swayed, their voices carrying across the evening air. They were singing "You Are My Sunshine," the lullaby Sarah had recorded for Thomas before she died, which had become their family's anthem of hope and resilience. Emily touched the locket around her neck, the twin to the one that had started their journey of reunion. Inside now were 3 photos, the sisters as children, Sarah holding newborn Thomas, and the whole family at Hope's christening, Sarah's portrait prominently displayed among them. "We did it," Sister Emily whispered to the setting sun. "We kept our promise. We're together in all the ways that matter. Your love lives on in your son, in Hope. In every family, the center helps heal. The garden had become more than just a memorial. It was a testament to the power of love to transform pain into purpose. Each flower, each laugh, each moment, each moment of joy was proof that Sarah's final choice had birthed not an ending, but a new beginning. Thomas Jr. ran to his mother, Hope toddling behind him. "Mom, can we have a sleepover in the garden tonight, under Mama Sarah's stars?" Emily smiled, remembering how she and Sarah had once done the same thing, whispering secrets to the night sky. "Of course, my loves. Your mother and I used to do that too." As twilight deepened into night, the family gathered in the garden. Michael set up the tent, while the children arranged their sleeping bags. Emily hung fairy lights that twinkled like the stars above, creating a magical space between heaven and earth. In this moment, surrounded by the family Sarah's sacrifice had made possible, Emily felt complete. The circle of love her sister had spoken of was unbroken mother to son, aunt to niece, sister to sister, past to future. The stars shone brightly overhead as Emily tucked her children into their sleeping bags. Remember, she told them softly, love doesn't have to break things to be real. Sometimes it builds something even more beautiful from the pieces. Dear viewers, if this story of love, sacrifice, and redemption has touched your heart, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What moments moved you the most? How did Sarah and Emily's journey resonate with your own experiences? Share your reflections in the comments below. Support our team by subscribing to our channel, allowing us to continue bringing you these powerful narratives of human connection. Help spread these messages of hope by sharing this video with your loved ones who might find comfort and inspiration in these stories. Don't forget to like this video. Your support means everything to us and encourages us to keep crafting these emotional journeys. Let's build a community where stories of love and healing can touch more hearts. Thank you for being part of our storytelling family.